All right, guys, welcome. We are getting ready to start our last unit of the semester, and it is China. This is an exciting unit. It's a lot of fun. The words should be a little bit easier for you to understand this time, so that's helpful. And I love this map that we have right here that shows us about China. This is the birth of Chinese influence we're going to talk about. And the reason this matters, here's our little It Matters thing. Let's see if I can, oh yeah, I got this going on. No, I don't. That one? Yes, there. Why? Whatever, guys. I wanted to point out it, but I can't. So it matters because China is one of the world's most powerful countries today, and they've influenced so many things, and their architecture is amazing. So I can't wait to discover China with you guys. So get started on your notes.
Okay, guys, so we are going to talk about China's geography. The civilization began on the Huanghe and the Changjiang rivers in ancient China. Southern China receives more rain than northern China, and farmers can grow several crops of rice a year. Western China's high mountains and wide deserts make travel difficult and isolate China's population centers in the east. So, we saw this in India where the mountains provided that isolation. We have the Himalaya mountains that are backing up to China. So again, with the Himalayas and the many deserts that China has, it became very difficult for invaders to come in. It became very difficult for people to get out. Those mountains and deserts really did isolate them and formed a unique culture within China since they had that isolation. Take a look at this map of China. You can see up in the top we have the deserts. The bottom left-hand side we have the mountains, and to the right we have the coastline. So if you guys just had to take a guess as to where most of the population lived, where would you think? Deserts, not too much water out there. Mountains, kind of hard to grow your crops on mountains. So maybe I'm thinking more towards the coastline is where they are going to have settled. That's all for me.
All right, so we're here to kind of make sure at this part that you're like paying attention to the map. And so here is our map of China. Keep in mind that everything in geography, especially in these ancient civilizations, is going to affect the way that people function here. And so one of the things that is unique about China is that the Yellow River has yellow soil in it. So when you're sitting here and you are doing these directions that are here, I want you to actually kind of acknowledge that, and I'm going to need help on the pronunciation, Laos? Nope, not Laos, Loess. The Loess, it means yellow. So if you have like a yellow highlighter or a yellow pen, I want you to write that in. I mean, you can write it in like not yellow, but that's boring. So this is going to be you proving that you have been listening to the things that, you just saw. I want you to color your populated areas green, color the desert areas yellow, and color the mountainous areas orange. This is not simply something that you can just fill in the blank and be like, I'm done. You actually have to kind of think about it. So make sure you have your colored pencils and be ready to go. And I'm doing the next slide too. Do you want me to just stop and do a new one, or? Okay. All right, then I will keep going. All right, so I'll pause and give you a place to tear on. All right, so for the hot question here, we're still going to be talking about geography because, as I literally just said, the geography affects everything around it. So what I want you to think about, and remember, our hot questions should be significant in length. You should have sentences. You should be using evidence from the video notes, your colors, whatever. You're proving to us that you're listening by filling out your hot question. So what impact did the geography of China have on the communication and travel with other civilizations? And if you need help, there is this wonderful, beautiful map that you can reference right there. So it's beautiful and has stop signs all over it. I wonder why that could be.
All right, so we want to talk about the very first Chinese dynasty and how that it began and how it starts. So the very first China dynasty is going to be the Shang. And we can see where they rule. And that's where you should have made most of your blue color, because the blue color on your map is where they're going to live, which is going to be near the water on this side, not the desert, not the mountains. And so the Shang dynasty, they're going to develop along the Huanghe River, also the Yellow River, and also known as China's Sorrow. And we'll talk about that too. They're going to be ruled by a king, which means they're a monarchy. So they're going to pass power on to their son. And it's going to be a dynasty. Remember, a family. Let's see. Yeah, family of rulers. Yeah, family of rulers. And they have to have somebody, since it's a dynasty, it's a really big area. And then so instead of having rajas that would rule other places like India did, we're going to have warlords. And we don't mean warlords like they're waging war everywhere. What we mean is that they're warlords that are governing local territories. So you can kind of think of them as like a mayor. Now, they were warriors and they were able to fight, and they were very good at that, but don't think warlords like we think of today. A little bit different. Most people are going to be farmers. We got to feed all these people in China. And so again, on our social pyramid, we'll see that the farmers are going to make the most of that population. And of course, they're going to be polytheistic, just like every other civilization that we've talked about, because still we're in BC, right? And all BC religions, almost all of them, are going to be polytheistic. So write that in right here, write polytheistic along there. And they do something different, a little bit different. They're going to honor their ancestors, and they think and believe and practice that their ancestors can influence how they live today, and they ask them for help. And they don't want to embarrass their ancestors at all. We'll talk about that filial piety later, about how you honor your parents. And so we'll talk about that, but that's going to be a very big thing in this civilization, the Chinese dynasties that we're going to talk about, honoring your parents. But they do one really cool thing that I like to know. And did you know that the ancient Chinese priest would write questions on like a turtle shell, and you can see one right here, and they would write questions on it, and then they would throw it into the fire. And then the cracks that appeared were be interpreted as like messages from the gods. So let's say they wanted to know if we should go into war. What will the outcome of this battle be? So they would take a shell or a bone, something like that, and they would write on it. And then they would take it, put it in the fire. If that bone somehow lasted and didn't crack or something, then that might be a good sign that yes, they should go to war. But if that bone just shattered into pieces and everything, it's like, no, now's not the time. So these oracle bones, you'll see a lot of that in your anime stuff. Miss Nettles and I were talking about that. Reading oracle bones to tell the.
So now that we've talked about the very first dynasty, we're going to talk about China's longest dynasty. I want you to take a moment, and by the Zhou, I want you to circle that it was China's longest dynasty. Okay, the Zhou, even though it's got that short name, was China's longest dynasty. Now, according to legend, the last of the Shang rulers was a wicked tyrant. That means he was just a horrible leader. In 1045 BC, rebels led by an aristocrat or a wealthy person named Wu Wang overthrew the government, and they declared that a new dynasty would start. And it's called the Zhou dynasty. And it lasted for more than 800 years. Circle that for me. Now, the question is, why did it last so very long? First, they had a bureaucracy. This is an important vocabulary term that you have. It's government officials who carry out tasks. You don't have just one leader trying to get everything organized. You pass down and you delegate, and you make sure that the best people are helping you stay organized if you're in charge. And it helps to create a stable leadership system where even if the king is sick, the work still gets done because everybody else knows how to do their job in the government. There's also something, and you notice there's a star here, called the mandate of heaven. Guys, this is probably the most important concept in the whole unit. So I want you to star that, circle it, go crazy. You need to know what this is. Now, what is it? Okay. It's the idea that a king's right to rule comes from the heavens or the gods. If I see heaven, I should be thinking the gods, right? Pretty logical conclusion. And a king must honor and please the gods. And if he didn't, he would be replaced. Now, We'll talk in our next video notes more about what that would look like. So he is expected to be a good ruler. He can't just do whatever he wants. But if bad things started happening in the kingdom, maybe a natural disaster, if there were some invaders that came in, if there was a disease or illness, he could be replaced and he would have been said to have lost the mandate of heaven. It's kind of like something in ancient Egypt where the pharaohs were blamed for all of these things. But in ancient China, if these things happen, then the king could be replaced. Now, we've got a pretty good system here that leads to a lot of stability. And it makes it so that leaders want to be good and want to be good rulers. So make sure as we move into lesson 2 that you're really paying attention close to this idea of the mandate of heaven. And we're going to see how that plays out. Double check, go back and watch the video if you have to make sure you have everything circled you need to. We will be checking. And that you've written that hot question well. We'll see you soon, guys.